the scary movie that scares people to death, here it comes again. Today I will help you to watch the Spanish horror movie, Nightmare. This movie is based on the true story, which is called the most evil and scary movie in recent years. The story begins with a young farmer, Catalin, who lives in a remote village. When she was preparing dinner for her husband, she deliberately put some poisonous mushrooms in the pot. The reason why she did this, besides the fact that she doesn't love her husband at all, the more important thing is that she is often abused by her husband. Therefore, in order to escape from this family, she had to do this. As expected, after her husband ate dinner, he planned to force Catalin to have sex. After being rejected by his wife, he slapped her hard. After seeing his wife's nose bleeding, not only did his husband have no heart, but he also accused her of dirtying his shirt. So he ordered Catalin to wash her clothes overnight, otherwise she would not want to sleep tonight. However, as soon as the music stopped, her husband suddenly felt pain in his stomach. Then he vomited uncontrollably. Unintentionally, he saw the poisonous mushrooms on the ground. This is when he realized that his wife had poisoned him. When Catalin saw this, he rushed to the door without hesitation. But when he saw the pitch-black night and the dark forest in front of him, he couldn't help but stop. This is because a local legend has been circulating. That is, you can't go out easily at night. Otherwise, you will be caught by the devil. But when he thought that he was no different from the hell, Catalin took up the coal lamp and ran towards the forest in front of him. As expected, he just rushed into the forest and he heard the sound of a nearby boat. Then a gust of wind kept blowing on his face. Catalin, who was originally timid, suddenly regained consciousness. But when he turned around, he saw Perla chasing him. After a little thinking, Catalin could only leave the fear behind and continue to run, until he ran into the forest and stopped. However, what made him more afraid was that Perla, who had been poisoned, also followed. And the next second, Perla's head grew a mountain goat's horn, and the whole person became a tall monster. Catalin didn't expect the rumor to be true. In order to avoid being caught, he could only try his best to run forward. However, at a critical moment, he accidentally fell. The monster followed him to squat on the ground and showed his fierce eyes and teeth. Then he opened his mouth to swallow Catalin. But with Catalin's scream, the monster suddenly disappeared. Not long after, 3 farmers rushed to save Catalin. It turns out that since the hunt began, religious judges all over the country have set various rules for women. For example, no gathering and no drinking. Once found to violate the rules, they will be caught as a witch. Some women who are dissatisfied with this ridiculous rule will go to the forest at night for a party. Here, they can not only drink as much as they want, but also share gossip news in the village and tell some exciting horror stories. After learning about Catalin's incident, the 3 agreed to let her stay here. But the condition is that she must tell everyone a horror story. This sudden request made her feel confused. The farmer next to her saw that she did not know how to tell a story, so he decided to tell a recent rumor he heard. That is a true story that happened in the village a month ago. Maria, the daughter of the family breeder Nia, was suddenly cursed by the witch. At the same time, she was tortured by the devil summoned by the witch. She was so weak that she could not get out of bed. In order to save her daughter, Nia invited the priest of Mato to help her. When Matao just recited a few scriptures, Maria's neck appeared with a few fingerprints. As if there was something clinging to her neck, Nia couldn't bear to see her daughter suffer, so she begged the priest to stop. At the same time, Maria's best friend also came to visit her. But no one would have thought that Maria's best friend was Catalin. Maria, who was suffering from the cold, finally showed a long-awaited smile. Then Catalin gave him the flowers he picked himself and agreed to go shopping together when he got better. At this time, Matao, who had just left Maria's house, found that the farmer Esther was standing not far away. He was the only one in the village who knew witchcraft and was also the witch who should have been caught. But because he was always alone and careful, Matao still couldn't find a reason to catch him. Looking at the figure of Esther leaving, Matao felt more and more that he was the one who cast a spell on Maria. At this time, Maria, who was singing to the future with Catalin, suddenly made a painful sigh. Then he suddenly sat up, not only stared at Catalin, but also made a strange sound to urge her to leave here as soon as possible. "Get out of my house! Get out!" After saying this sentence, Maria seemed to have been sucked dry and died on the bed. Catalin had no choice but to leave. After a night, Maria's condition didn't get better, but it got worse. To save her daughter's life, Nia had to entrust her son Anton to find Esther for help. As expected, Esther, who knew witchcraft, had long seen the evil spirit torturing Maria. And when he learned from Anton that Anton's grandfather was the last person who passed away in the family, he deduced that the evil spirit was their grandfather. But Anton doubted this. After all, in his opinion, Sister Maria was like an angel. He didn't believe that his grandfather would treat her like this. But in order to make Maria recover soon, Anton decided to trust Esther once. After accepting the red candle, he wrapped it around the statue to commemorate his grandfather as ordered. Then he lit the candle next to Maria and covered the net with fire. After the house was in the dark, he took the net apart. As expected, the mother and son really saw a giant evil spirit squatting on Maria. And at this moment, he still pinched Maria's neck and kept cursing her. Anton soon recognized that the evil spirit in front of him was his late grandfather. After hearing Anton's cry, his grandfather turned around and scolded Anton. He saw Maria defile the reputation of the family. Anton didn't believe his kind sister would do such a thing. Seeing his grandfather continue to hurt Maria, he hurried to use a needle to pierce the heart. This is also the method that Esther taught Anton to subdue the devil. He didn't expect it to work. It's just that seeing his grandfather didn't mean to stop at all. Anton immediately sprinkled Esther's corn kernels on the ground and recited a spell. Not long after, the evil spirit of his grandfather disappeared. But what everyone didn't expect was that Maria died on the spot. After talking about Maria's story, the farmer asked a question. That is, how terrible a sin to make his grandfather so hateful. Catalin heard this and rebuked the other party. She just said that Maria had a strange disease, and that unreliable witch was the culprit who killed her. I didn't expect this to just come out. The three farmers in front of me were all against him, because the three of them all knew Esther and knew that, although she looked ugly, she was actually very warm-hearted and often helped the villagers. So she would never kill anyone. Who told you that it was all Esther's fault? Was it your husband? Who said it was Don Mateo? After hearing the three words of Matao, the farmers showed a strange look. Obviously, Matao's reputation was extremely poor here. At this time, another farmer couldn't help but talk about a spiritual event related to Matao. He said that Matao seemed to be true. In fact, Matao was a man who was extremely greedy for power, especially when he always promoted equality to all. But in fact, he liked to go hunting in the mountains. And one day, when he was hunting, he accidentally found two girls dancing in the forest. Matao hid in the dark and observed for a while. He finally recognized the two girls, Mary and Catherine. After they were tired of dancing, they lied on the fallen leaves to rest, and soon the two of them got close to each other. Then Mary suddenly gave Catherine a handkerchief embroidered with flowers. This touched Catherine very much because since she was forced to marry Pedro, she had never received any gifts. So she envied Mary for not being forced to marry. Hearing this, Mary said, "If a girl doesn't get married, she has to pay the price, which is to shave half of her head like a man." Mary's words suddenly came to Catherine's side. She was looking forward to asking her if she wanted to leave here with her and go to a place where no one knew them. Although Catherine also yearned for her, she was more worried that once she was caught by Pedro, she would be poisoned. For this, Mary was already prepared. She only saw her put a poisonous mushroom in Catherine's palm and put the poisonous mushroom in when she was cooking. In this way, Pedro had no strength to chase them. But even so, Catherine still had no energy to make up her mind. Mary didn't say anything. After that, the two of them did some embarrassing things. Matthew, who was hiding in a table, was shocked. He didn't expect that Mary and Catherine were actually a couple of loving lovers. As a high-ranking official, he would never allow anyone to do this kind of unscrupulous behavior. But when he pointed his gun at these two girls, Matthew suddenly heard a strange voice behind him. He turned his head and saw a single-eyed rabbit who suddenly appeared behind him. At this time, Matthew didn't realize that this rabbit was actually his evil idea. When he fired at the rabbit and opened the gun, the rabbit was hit but still ran away. Party and judge her. At that moment, Catherine was so scared that she ran home. Matthew was still angry about the poisonous mushroom, but when he saw the witch behind his wife, he was so scared that he closed the door. In this way, the witch took off Catherine's coat and pulled out her hair and continued to interrogate her whether she had framed Esther. At this moment, Catherine, who was about to collapse, finally admitted the truth. She and Matthew did sign a document indicating that Esther was a witch. What surprised her was that she had been beaten to a pulp and was still hanging in the air. Esther could not only understand her difficulties, but also reminded her not to blame herself. However, after the witches knew the truth, they still did not want to forgive her easily. They decided to hand Catherine to the judge. The farmer handed a small jar of ointment to Catherine and put it on her. After everyone recited the incantation, Catherine flew up and waited for everyone to fly away. After that, she hid at home and rushed to the yard and smeared half a bottle of ointment on her body. She did not fly up, but was dragged by an invisible force into the woods until she hit a big stone and stopped. Then she was out of control and flew away. Finally, she saw a group of people. It turned out that Catherine was worried that the next person to be judged was herself. So she came to Catherine and asked for help. But she didn't know that Catherine couldn't protect herself and couldn't help her. When Pei Luo fell from the sky and died, a group of people fell next to a bonfire. They only saw Catherine coming to the front under the guidance while the others kept kneeling in front of the bonfire. At each meeting, a monster with a long mountain goat horn appeared in front of everyone. The other person just waved, and everyone on the ground lay on the ground and began to take off each other's clothes and do something inappropriate in public. When Catherine didn't know what to do, the monster with a long mountain goat horn turned into a human and became Mary. Catherine didn't expect that she would meet her lover again. She ran over and hugged her lover. Obviously, the goddesses decided to forgive Catherine's mistake. For Catherine, she didn't care if what she saw was real or an illusion, because as long as she could be with the person she loved, she was willing to do anything. In Western history, there was a 100-year hunting operation. The victims were women who had no rights. Therefore, many women were forced to hide in the mountain to avoid persecution and were born with various strange legends. This movie tells the story of the hunting story in Basque country in the 17th century.